Hey y'all, I wanted to make a video showing the state's case, and let's just begin with um, where it all began. And the state is contending because Richard Allen was wearing a blue jacket and was out on the bridge that day, that that makes him the bridge guy. And um, Now, keep in mind, Richard Allen didn't say what he was wearing back when he went to the police and said that he was on the bridge because he wasn't a suspect. He was a witness. And later, years later, he said he was either wearing a blue or black Carhartt jacket because those are the only two jackets he owns. And so he couldn't recall which one he was wearing. Um, Now, um, likely he was wearing his blue Carhartt jacket because the girls identified him as wearing um, a a duck canvas jacket, which very much is a Carhartt jacket. Um, but this is not a Carhartt jacket, um, and the state um, should have known if they would have done any research into this at all, they would have realized this is not a duck canvas, not a thick canvas jacket. This is a Carhartt jacket. It's thick and it's a little more expensive. You notice the zipper and the thick duck canvas. They when it's that kind of material, they call that duck canvas material. And that's what the girls properly identified Rick Allen is wearing, this jacket. And notice Carhartt is very proud of their label. You're not going to have in fact, my hat is Carhartt. And notice the label is very prominent in um, all their clothing, and it stands out. Um, That does not have a Carhartt label on that jacket because it would stand out. You would notice it immediately. Um, this is not a thick jacket. You can see right through this cheap nylon. In fact, this is a nylon windbreaker. Um, you can see the buttons on this jacket. You can see there's a button right here. Um, or I should say, you can see where it's buttoned. Not an expensive jacket. In fact, you can see it's so thin that you can see right through it, and you can see things that are reflecting on the inside of this jacket, uh, like this water bottle. And if you watch my first video, you'll see that this water bottle actually reflected light onto his jacket arm, which is another proof that it is in fact a water bottle. So this is a very thin material, um, and I've proven that that's a water bottle. With the reflection that came from the sun off the water and onto his arm. So not a Carhartt jacket, and it you know it would have taken um, someone 10 minutes to figure out that that's not a Carhartt jacket. That what Bridge Guy is wearing is a cheap nylon windbreaker. Okay, so the state, their entire case originated from the fact that Richard Allen was out on a bridge wearing a blue jacket. And now keep in mind, Richard Allen was one that went to law enforcement and said, when he was out on the bridge. But then years later, they came to him and said, hey, and re interviewed him and said, hey, when were you out on that bridge? And 5 years later, he's like, well, it was, I don't know, around noon, and I stayed there for like an hour and a half, so probably left around 1:30. He had no idea 5 years later when he had gotten there. And I mean, I would ask you, when did you go to Walmart 5 years ago? And if you were to guess, well, I don't know, I usually go around 8, stay for an hour. Well, they say, and if they say, no, we've got you on camera at 6, 5 years ago at Walmart, so you're lying. That's essentially what they did to Rick Allen. They said, oh, well, you're lying. You must be lying because um, you told us 5 years ago that you were there, got there at 1:30. And so noon is, you know, a very vague time. It's not very specific at all. Noon is just a guess. It's obvious that he was just guessing 5 years later when he got there. He wasn't lying. Richard Allen, uh, if anything, he's always been consistent in everything he said. He said that he didn't see the girls, and the reason he didn't see the girls is because they were hiding from him. And you can see in a previous video that I've put out on the timeline, I've shown that has to be what happened. Um, and he did go sit on a park bench, and there was no one else that came from that direction that would refute what Richard Allen has said. And so everything he has said um, is um, has been truthful. Now, just because he couldn't remember 5 years ago what time he got there doesn't mean that he's lying. Um, okay, so that's originally why the state was convinced that it was Richard Allen because um, the guy on the bridge was wearing a blue jacket and jeans. What man in Indiana doesn't wear a blue jacket and jeans? That's every man. Um, but the state couldn't possibly believe that a killer would not have been seen. I can't believe a killer would have allowed himself to be seen. Um, it it makes complete sense that the killer would not have been seen, and that is in fact what happened. But so what the state did is the next big piece of evidence besides what he was wearing was they went and took the cartridge to their to the ISP ballistics expert. They didn't let the FBI involved in testing the cartridge because they knew it had to be Richard Allen, and so because they were convinced because he was wearing a blue jacket, so they gave it to their expert and basically told their expert, "Look, we know this is the guy. All we need you to do is verify that that's came from his gun." And so this woman was pressured into saying that that cartridge had been cycled through Richard Allen's gun. They handed her one gun and they handed her one cartridge and said, "We need you to say that that came out of that gun." I guarantee you that's what happened because she didn't have time to do a proper scientific um, analysis of that cartridge. I'm I'm an engineer. My background is in engineering, and I worked for Baxter Healthcare once upon a time. And anytime we did any change to a product, we had to go through rigorous scientific studies, which involved a lot of uh, the proper scientific method, um, and that takes months and months to properly determine whether this change that you made to a product is safe. And so it involves doing statistical analysis using standard deviations and all the things that you should do, uh, that we do in science. None of that was done in this case because it was rushed through in a matter of days. I know there was no um, statistical analysis done in this. It was simply handing her one gun and one bullet and saying, "We need you to say," and well, first I'm sure they assured her that, "Oh, we know that this is the guy, you know, and we just need you to give us this, say that this was cycled through his gun." And now, to her credit, this ballistics expert with the ISP, she made sure that we understood that this is a subjective outcome. Subjective means one person might say it went through his gun. The next person would say, no, it didn't go through his gun. That's what subjective means. And so, but ISP got what they wanted. They 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 strong armed her into saying that had been cycled through his gun, because they had no evidence. They just had a man in a blue jacket. But now that they have this so-called evidence of and and there's this is not even a field of science at all. This is not used. Um, this cycling cartridge through a gun. But nevertheless, that's what was used in the PCA to get Richard Allen arrested. And apparently, this cartridge had been cycled multiple times. Like I've heard 3 times through the killer's gun, and that's indicative of someone who carries a firearm, not someone who's just who goes out and plinks, or someone who uses it for home defense. And by all indications, Richard Allen uses his for home defense. Um, he he didn't carry it around with him. He left it at home, and he said that there's no way anyone else could have gotten their hands on his gun because he didn't carry it around with him. And so this is the fact that it had been cycled through multiple times, because every time you carry, um, you know, when you when you get home, you're gonna you know, take out not only the clip but the bullet that's chambered as well, and then you'd put that bullet back in the clip, and the next time you use it, you'll cycle it through again. So um, by being multiple, by being cycled multiple times, that's indicative of someone who carries, and that's not Richard Allen. So this blue jacket led to the ISP essentially fabricating evidence against Richard Allen. This was not any sort of scientific process done um, um, to come to that conclusion. It couldn't have been, because there wasn't time. So this in turn led to his arrest, and they needed Richard Allen. They needed more evidence. They needed him to confess. So they made his life a living hell. They didn't put him in jail like he should have been. They not only put him in prison, but solitary confinement. He didn't get the exercise or the showers. He was mistreated terribly. He was tased twice. while in his jail cell. Um, he was treated horribly, and finally they broke him. I mean, it would happen to any of us. It would happen to me. Uh, I, I know I would be broken by such horrible treatment. Um, and so they did get their confession. Now, interestingly, his so-called confession actually proves that he he didn't kill the girls because he confessed that he had shot one of the girls in the back. That didn't happen, and of course he would have thought the girls would have died by a gun because they were so interested in his gun and getting his gun and talking about his gun. So he just assumed that they were killed using a gun, and that to me that it's very indicative that he he's innocent because his so-called confession proves that it wasn't him. He also confessed that he apologized for assaulting the girls. They weren't assaulted either, and so and the fact that he's apologizing tells me that he was convinced, he was made to believe that he was the killer, but he's a very kind man, and you know, um, this is what an innocent, kind man would do is apologize, and he's apologizing for things that didn't happen. So, and you know, um, he began eating paper, um, eating his own feces. What they did to him was unforgivable, and but these so-called confessions, to me, are just a strong indicator that he had nothing to do with these crimes, and they should be to law enforcement as well. So what started out as, um, hey, it has to be him because he wore a blue jacket and had blue jeans on, turned into, well, let's make sure, since we have no other evidence, let's make up evidence. Let's let's make the cartridge fit his gun, and then, well, now that we've got that, we've got him arrested. Now let's force a confession out of him, and it all stemmed from the fact that he has a blue jacket. Not It's not his jacket. He's got this jacket. This is Richard Allen's jacket. Um, this is this is not a Carhartt jacket. And law enforcement, if it wasn't for the fact that there was a sheriff race coming up, um, then I don't think we would have even had an arrest because they would have had time to think through this and examine the evidence. But they made a snap decision. Um, if it wasn't for a judge wanting to make the Indiana Supreme Court, maybe he could get out of prison and into a jail. Maybe he could have a fair, fast trial. But if it wasn't for the head of the ISP wanting to be governor, um, and really not caring who was arrested, they just needed someone arrested so that they can get their promotion, um, and it's just a sad case of aspiring men and women and conspiring men and women who really don't care about this innocent man whose life has been ruined, and and that's the evidence of the state, and they really have nothing else. Now, a lot of people um, live in a fantasy world where, oh, we think that there'll be other stuff that comes out at trial. I can tell you right now that there's not. And um, you, you know, um, and the state, I think, is doing everything they can to stall, because they know he's innocent. Um, and um, if they can get him to go crazy while he's in prison in solitary confinement, um, then they don't have to admit that they arrested the wrong guy. And so that's why this case keeps getting, that's why they continue to stall. And, uh, and if it's up to Judge Gold, I think they'll stall even past October, because they don't want they don't want this case to go to trial. Um, who would? They have no evidence, and now they know he's innocent, because it's been proven that he's innocent. All right, thank you. Appreciate your time.